Faceoff on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams. Ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Faceoff on Fox Soul starts right now.
The blood of Jesus. You don't have to be, y'all. Come on.
In this round, here's Quan LX.
Lord have mercy. Did you see them crazy Negroes fighting in the house of the Lord? Those were not highly intelligent
What does their skin
black
color
brothers
have
and
to
sisters.
do with it?
Those were not God-fearing, Christ-filled, spiritual, believing black brothers and sisters. Them were some crazy Negroes. I cannot believe in the house of God, in the house where the Lord's name is uplifted, sanctified, and worshiped, where people's lives are changed and saved, that you all went in the church and decided to act a plumb damn fool. The only way I believe something like that could have happened was the pastor sleep on somebody's wife and they found out about it. He decided to come to the church and take care of business. Was somebody in the choir messing with the band leader, or was one of the ushers dealing with one of the deacons? This is madness. But let me say this. You don't do that in the house of God. Take that to the parking lot. Take that down the street. Brothers, I don't care how angry you are. Don't let Satan and satanic influences make you so angry that you go in the house of worship, defile the house of worship with crazy ass behavior and foul language. No, you deal with that outside. Don't do that inside the house of God. But that's why you never see that kind of behavior in the mosque. As Muslims,
I am.
that's different.
Right.
We deal with that a whole lot different.
Yeah, that's right. The Islamic faith is known for its love and peacefulness. That's
Yeah, you act like that inside the mosque, there's a whole lot of brothers that's going to help deal with you real quick.
Oh, violence.
No, we're going to help you take it outside.
So here's, well, they were taking it outside.
No, they wouldn't. They took too long.
But are you feeling all right?
Oh, yes.
Because I really felt like there was going to be a curveball where you would find a way to blame Whitey for that, and you didn't. So I figured maybe
white folks did establish the church in America.
Okay.
You did give them that white Jesus they praying to inside that church.
It's Christianity that's the global.
That blonde-haired, blue-eyed image of Jesus looked like Charles Manson's little brother. You white folks didn't give them that, so they might be why they acting crazy as hell.
The popular image of Jesus is attributed to a 15th century Pope's son. It's most certainly not the actual Jesus, which would probably look more like an Ashkenazi Jew today than anything.
An Ashkenazi Jew? No, it wouldn't. It would look like the original Hebrew Israelite Jews, the Falasha Jews.
Okay, again,
those beautiful black-skinned brothers and sisters.
That actually false narrative.
No, Paul described Jesus as having lamb's wool. That's that thick dreadlock type hair. Paul said he had skin as fiery furnaces burnt in the oven. When you burn something in the furnace, it's black.
Do you also think Cleopatra was black? Do we have to go
Let me
through
say this.
Yes, let's.
You and I both know Cleopatra was not some blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman.
Actually, she was European.
No, she wasn't no damn European. That's the lie y'all told in Hollywood.
So why? No, actually, you're the one.
But
let's
you know you was a black woman.
Let's first of all, this was absurd. The behavior was absurd. Everyone that engaged in a fist fight in a church should be ashamed of themselves. But let's get to this colorism here. Okay, so up in Sweden, until the mass migration, you have a bunch of blonde-haired, blue-eyed people, right? Why were they so light-skinned? because they needed to be able to accept all of the sunlight in a part of the world where there was not a lot of sunlight available. It's called Darwin. And if you go to the heart of Africa, where the sun is beating down 365 days a year, you need a dark complexion to protect yourself from skin cancer and other things. So you must have been
smoking that European crack pipe. Because that's not the origin of life, dear brother. The origin of life are black people in Africa. Even white anthropologists and white geneticists like Dr. Mary Leakey and Dr. Richard Mendel admitted that the origin of life is in black Africa.
Okay,
you're trying to make like you white folks are the origin of life, because you're really not.
I wasn't at all.
We are your mothers and your fathers. Y'all come from us.
If you look from the heart of Africa to Sweden, and it's basically just, everyone gets lighter and lighter and lighter, right? Like clearly people in the Middle East,
you've been taking them gummies
in Italy. No, the truth is that it's just a mixing of races that leads to different complexions and different, it's absolutely absurd.
Ladies and gentlemen,
right?
Y'all know my co-host's been playing with them gummies because Texas is considering outlawing those gummies, so he's trying to load up on as much as he possibly can. You folks in that church, y'all be shaming your damn selves.
Okay,
that's pathetic.
It has
that's
nothing
a disgrace
to do with them being
in
black.
the house of God. Yes, it is, because we as black folks.
And it most certainly has.
No, black folks worship Jesus different than white people.
There's certainly.
White people don't worship Jesus like black people do.
Well,
y'all be in church.
I mean, on a
black
holistic,
folks be in church praising the Lord, thanking Jesus for salvation,
if you look at
and thanking God for the miracles that God performed.
I would agree with you if you make it purely data-based. Yes, there seems to be a larger portion of rule-following white people in America. Right,
rule following white people.
Right, I mean law-abiding. Right, that's
what rules?
The data would support that. I know you don't like data, but
the same people that don't shuffle the deck deal from the bottom of the deck, then tell black folks we got a fair hand. But those are rules he's talking about.
But you began this by demonizing the Christian faith and suggesting that somehow there's more peace and love in the Islamic faith, and this is a narrative.
You don't see Muslims defiling the house of God with that petty foolishness.
That is an absurd narrative.
The mosque is a much beautiful place than that type of behavior. But let the church be what God made it to be, and not what we just witnessed. That was madness, what we witnessed.
It was absolutely madness. It had nothing to do with those people's race, and it most certainly didn't have anything to do with the Christian faith.
No, I think somebody's wife was being played with in that church. That's probably what it was. I mean, because that was a real.
Well, religion is just the opiate for the foolish masses.
Que nos va a sacar de este hueco se llaman los negros americanos.
100%.
African American community is the only community that has the power in this country to change anything. They are the only one with the experience of civil matter. They are the only one que tenían el esclavo ahí mismitico. They are the only one that are not going to get deported anywhere, and you cannot put them all in jail. So African American community, which is the community that is stepped on by Cubans, the most are the only ones that are going to save the Latinos. And I clap for the African American community that has not come out, because it is not. I do. We didn't do.
I get it. I get it. But I don't.
Me and you support, but in masses, we didn't support anything that was going with them. Latinos look at Cubans specifically. I'm not gonna talk about any other community because I'm not part of that community, even though I'm a Latina with them. Cubans talk about African Americans. Cubans did not support African Americans. Cubans think that they all victimize themselves, of this, all of that. African Americans are the only ones that are going to save your Latinos. So you better start kissing. If you're gonna kiss someone in this country, you better kiss some black. La única comunidad que no va.
Here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
Okay, so that was Latina Podcast host Angelina Castro uniquely complaining about racialized animosity while holistically condemning the Cuban community. And it always strikes me as odd, right? When someone says, oh, I don't really like how racist someone is or something is, and then continues with her own brand of racism. And this was more ethnic based, she being Latino as well, but she's talking as if every Cuban is a racist. Now, there clearly is, if you go to Miami, there does clearly seem to be racial animosity between a lot of Cubans and a lot of African Americans, but it's most certainly not all of them. And then she was talking about how Latin Americans or Latino community didn't show up for the black community. I assume she's referencing in the protest season of 2020. I find that to be absurdly untrue, right? I attended protests. They were incredibly diverse, right? You had tons of white people out there. You had the BLM protests. You had tons of Latino people out there. You had Asian people.
Speaking about in Florida, she was talking about in Florida, and surrounding the Trayvon Martin protest in particular.
Okay, well, did she mention Trayvon Martin?
No,
I
but
didn't
that
hear
was
it,
the biggest protest in Florida.
A decade ago.
Martin protest.
I would say the BLM
and
protest probably
and George
a more
Floyd's
recent,
protests were huge.
But I think it's absurd to just assume that all Latinos don't show up for the black community.
I don't think she was really saying
that. That's what she said expressly.
I don't think so. I think she
and
was,
then she called Cubans
speaking
racist.
to and addressing the big elephant in the room.
What's the big elephant
between blacks and Latinos in America? If you go to Cuba, and those were Cuban podcast members, these were two Cuban women. In Cuba, there's always been a racial animosity rift between black Cubans and white Cubans in Cuba. This is a fact. In fact, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan addressed that same issue when he visited Cuba and met with Fidel Castro, because many of the black Cubans was asking the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to speak to Fidel Castro about the mistreatment of black Cubans in Cuba. Charles, you see that same dynamic in Colombia, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, where the black-skinned Latino is at the bottom and badly mistreated, but the white-skinned one is on top. In Florida and around America, I want Latinos to think about this, and black people. There was a famous white supremacist scholar in America who wrote a book in the 90s called Two Nations, Dr. Andrew Hacker. In that book, he wrote One Nation Black, One Nation White. And he spoke about the fear of genetic annihilation in America if black and brown birth rates continue to soar and white birth rates continue to go backward. He said that within 30 years, America would be majority minority, no longer white controlled or dominated. And what he suggested in that book, go read it. He said what we should do is take Latinos who are born in America and make them probationary whites. Teach them to abandon Latino language, teach them to abandon Latino culture, and teach the ones that are born here that they're better than the ones who are immigrating to America and not born here. This is what a white scholar said do to divide the Latino community. And that term coconut, he used it often in that book. And a coconut, according to Dr. Hacker, was a brown-skinned Latino, brown on the outside, but white on the inside, like Senator Marco Rubio, who's now part of the Trump administration. The same way like the governor of Florida, he's the same coconut. Brown on the outside, but white on the inside.
DeSantis is white.
DeSantis is a Cuban.
No, he's not. DeSantis
is connected to Latino heritage. He has Latino heritage.
I don't think so.
And his heritage is ignored because he wanted to be a white man. But I will say this to all of us, Latinos and black people, they don't want us to come together. It is the worst nightmare of America. If black and brown people come together, Trump couldn't do a damn thing in America. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party couldn't do nothing without coming to us for our approval, our direction, and sanctioning. So they got to keep the black and brown man divided and keep us hating each other for the crumbs that falls from their table.
Who is they?
I'm talking about the white power structure in America. Because there would be no more white power structure in America that could hurt brown people or black people. If the black and brown community came together and united, we could stop this overnight.
Well, I think most certainly both parties want to keep all of us angry at each other, but you engage in your typical, first of all, calling a white racist who self-publishes books a white scholar is just absurd.
Oh, he was a scholar.
He's just a racist, right?
And many white scholars have been racist in America.
You act like, well, there's coconut. You act like you've never heard the term Oreo, and I've only heard it with black people.
And Oreo is real.
It's black.
Oreo is real.
Black people.
What do you think Clarence Thomas is on the United States Supreme Court? He's an Oreo.
It's a horribly racist thing to say.
It's a truthful definition. You ever watch the Boondocks?
You know.
Uncle Ruckus is an Oreo. I apologize for right here.
All you do is
I'm gonna be quiet now.
constantly,
I'm gonna be
right?
quiet now.
And the truth is, this woman was holistically condemning the Cuban community. You casually, constantly, holistically condemn white people as a whole, and also condemn people that you think are brown or black that act too white. And by too white, do you mean too rule following, too law abiding, too like get up and go to work and have a job?
But that's
every
not white
day?
folks.
Oh yeah, of course that's not white folks. I mean, the data would suggest that it is. But here's
Who
the thing.
controls that data?
Here's the thing. Yeah, it's all the data's fake, right? And Asians didn't come here largely as immigrants and worked their butts off.
They did do that.
You know, it's just all nonsense, right? You want to divide everybody by race because it makes you money, right? Just like extremists on the right want to get everybody inflamed because it makes them money. And you talked yesterday about the unraveling of America as you continue to try to unravel America. And the truth is,
I would
that
like
we should,
the unraveling
we
of white
used to
supremacy in
we used
America
to
all
talk
day,
about,
every day.
you know,
Let it unravel, baby.
Okay, how do you presume, when you talk about white people generally, how do you presume to unravel the white supremacy in working class white people that get up and go to Walmart every day?
You, man.
Okay.
America.
The bad whites.
America has many God-fearing good white people in it.
Oh, we got the good white ones.
Let me say this. It is true. But often when those good white people who stand up for God and speak godly words, they are attacked, they're vilified, they're condemned, and some of them are afraid to even walk out their homes.
What are you talking
Charles,
about?
there are white people in America who don't like what's happening in this country
of the
and have
evangelicals
fought hard
on the right
to change the drama and the madness in America. But Charles, let me tell you something, man. You think I'm just talking.
No, I think you are just a racist, but that's not anything new.
America is unraveling internally. And remember how the Roman Empire
right.
fell?
It
was not an outside enemy. It was not an outside enemy. The internal enemy within Rome brought down the Roman Empire.
You don't want the
Do you know what brought down Babylon?
To work together
Internal
to demand a government
and civil
that
war.
actually benefits citizens of America,
Charles,
puts us first with universal health care, with lower taxes,
if
with
America
better
does not
infrastructure,
change course,
with better vocational training, with better
if she does not change course,
with a return to manufacturing.
we are going to destroy the greatest nation on earth.
You want to destroy.
No, I do not.
You talk that you want.
I want America to change for the better.
Segregated.
No, I want America to change for the better. But I don't want to see an America to where we are allowing the enemies who hate this nation to step right on in and play on the internal discord and strife of Americans
exactly what you're
and bring this
for.
thing down. And I'm going to tell you something. Right now, when you see millions taken to the street in the quote-unquote No Kings protests, what they're saying is they believe Donald Trump believes he's a king, not a president.
No, they were just
his
looking
language
for a reason
and his
to
behavior
protest.
demonstrates that of a king, not a president.
Why weren't these people doing that during COVID lockdown?
Because, Charles, let me tell you something.
Biden was
no,
president.
let's be honest. It had nothing to do with Biden.
Okay.
It had everything to do with complicity in mainstream media.
Okay.
The media sold the people
Well,
those
the media
lies.
sold people on this
They
no
sold
kings
those
nonsense.
lies. And Dr. Fauci should be brought up on criminal charges, in my opinion, if we're going to tell the truth.
But here's the thing.
Charles,
This
and
no
I'm going to tell you something
protest
else.
was nonsense.
People were forced to take them shots and not go to school. Take those shots and lose your jobs.
I thought they were
Come on,
trampling
man.
the Constitution. But no, we didn't see this season of protest then. We just saw people's lives being crushed. Here, this was all manufactured. This is manufactured by a complicit media and paid protesters.
You don't think Trump played a hell of a role?
No, I don't think.
In bringing in the National Guard and then bringing in the Marine Corps? You bring in the Marine Corps, Charles?
Well, but the city, the mayor, and the governor.
There was nothing going on in California
that's not true.
that justified bringing in the United States Marine Corps.
You're just regurgitating the lie,
National
right?
Guard is one thing, and that was too far. But when you bring in the battalion, the 7th Battalion of the Marines, that's too much, Charles.
We cannot allow
that
those.
That looks like China.
We cannot allow
that looks like Dominion Square.
To usurp the voice of protest to destroy cities in America anymore. And just because leftist politicians, especially radicals like Karen Bass, don't want to actually use law enforcement as a mechanism to quell riots and looting, it doesn't mean that our chief executive can just ignore it, right? What we need to do is a return to consequences for criminality while also supporting people's right to free speech and the right to assembly. Because I do think that the LAPD went a bit far with some valid protesters. But we've got to this point in America where it's just constant division, this constant reason to hate. We saw the shootings in Minnesota. We saw the extreme violence in Los Angeles. And it's just this microcosm. And also when people,
Trump is playing a role in that with the things coming out of his mouth?
I absolutely
Charles?
think his immigration policies are inflaming people. But he's also
And he's doing exactly what he said he would not do.
No, he's doing exactly what he said he would do.
No, he said that they would only go after the hardcore criminals.
That's not true.
And initially he said they would only go after the hardcore criminals and get them out of this country. But now we see that was a lie. He's going after all of them, no matter who they are.
And I think that obviously the oligarchs who allowed this
open border. You're raiding Home Depot.
Okay. Right, no, I agree. It's ridiculous.
You're raiding restaurants.
But it is.
You're raiding the flea market.
I absolutely agree. It's ridiculous. But it is
going into high schools.
But it is the policy rejoinder from years of Democrats saying, oh, we're sanctuary cities. We don't care what crime this illegal entrant commits. We're not going to turn him over to ICE. That was equally insane. That was a policy pushed by LULAC and other organizations that was fully embraced, and it was horrible for the American citizens, and it was horrible for the immigrant communities who suffered the most from that crime, right? So now we have good, hardworking immigrants suffering again. Before Biden's policy shifts, immigrants were far more law-abiding than regular citizens, right? That has changed. We need to remove the criminals and the gang members and the people that come.
He's doing way more
I know
than that,
he is,
Charles.
but he always said he would. He's been
And
one that he has
is the
demonized
problem,
immigrants for a decade, right? Because he was playing to populist anger. But at the end of the day, there are some valid concerns that Bernie Sanders and Bill Clinton and Barack Obama all used to share about the impact mass migration has on the working class of America, especially people of color. And it's been horrible. As we've outsourced manufacturing jobs, we have left.
But those manufacturing jobs will never come back.
Destroyed.
Those manufacturing jobs will never come back, and it's not immigrants' fault.
Think about all the money these liberal states were paying to incentivize immigrants when they weren't paying for black American citizens.
Well, why were they doing it?
Because they were looking the long game for votes. We need to worry about
They were
citizens.
looking to incorporate new voters to replace black people that were waking up to that Democratic plantation.
That's it for the Face-Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch you next time.